Okay, there we go. All right. So, well, first, welcome to the June meeting of the Historic Highway 99 Association of California. This month's topic, we're going to talk about Lake Shasta and the highway that lies beneath, though we'll see what happens this year. There may not be much highway lying beneath. So, well, first I'll hand it over to Vicki Farmwald, who is our secretary. Go ahead.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Vicki. I just wanted to let everybody know I'm working on getting us t-shirts and hats. If anybody has suggestions from something else that they think might work well with our soon, I guess we're getting this ready for the swap meet sales and also for different venues throughout the state. For selling. So I'm getting some pricing together on that, and I should have that for the next meeting available. So we have some more info on that, or I can send an email out to everybody and let them know about that. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to having some apparel. As it is, I have this. This is not one of our designs, but this I got from
that's nice.
Jill Livingston, actually, although she doesn't seem to sell them anymore. Maybe just ran out of stock. Jill Livingston is the one that wrote That Ribbon of Highway, the series of books that covers 99 from border to border. And in this case, you can see.
Yeah, that's all I'm.
99 palm to pine. So we may have something similar to this, don't know yet, but it will include our logo and something like that.
Yes.
So, okay. All right, so that being said, if there's nothing else, then I guess it's time to go to Lake Shasta. So first off, let's see here. I'll put this on hold for a second. So with Highway 99 under Lake Shasta, 99 had, at least in California, I'm not quite sure how to put it, but basically it has two sections which happen to be some of the most scenic underwater, or at least partially underwater or inundated by something, which, to be honest, is, well, kind of annoying. As you have Piru Gorge. Well, we have a portion of Piru Gorge, but you have, a significant section of it cut off by Pyramid Lake. And then further north, you have something similar with here. Oh, what's that? Yeah. We'll deal with that. Okay. So, and then of course you have Lake Shasta. Now, Shasta, of course, is definitely older, and you have different set of highway dealing with. You have, well, with Pyramid Lake, of course, you have the section of highway from, that was inundated latest 1972. So you had the express, you had everything up to the expressway, era of US 99. 4-lane, pretty good alignment. Then you have Lake Shasta, which was inundated in 1944. So you have the pre-war, you have the original alignment basically, and the improvements are all post-reservoir. Really changes what you see, and definitely changes the feel of it. Unfortunately, one of the bridges, I don't have any pictures of it yet, going up there and later this year, was replaced. That was the Antler Bridge. That was replaced a few years ago, and no longer have that nice green steel cantilever structure. So let's see, how do I do this? first. Here at the beginning. Okay. Display settings, swap. Actually, I'll figure this out. Okay, so now I'm going to hope this works. Okay. And here we go. Okay. So, presentation. So Highway 99, Lake Shasta. So here we have, whoops. This is a topo map from 1946, which conveniently still shows the contours underneath the lake. Does not show the old highway, but we have other maps for that. So a couple things to point out here. This is the Pitt River area, and Pitt Bridge is actually probably for the railroad. The old highway, you can see a little bit of it here, swung around here, came down and crossed right about here, and then just stayed on the north side of the river up to Johns Creek, came up, popped, did some turns, popped up, went over here through O'Brien, down here, popped up again, up and over Salt Creek. Over here, it crossed again. This is a location known as Pollock. Crossed over the railroad and the river, and popped out again here, and then is pretty much on this abandoned, or this section here, all the way up to what is now known as Lakehead. So, let's see. There we go. Okay. So Shasta Dam Project. It was part of the Central Valley Project, which is a fairly big project. It was more than just Shasta Dam. It also included a lot of the canal and reservoir and canals and other dams in the Central Valley. It was, well, under the Bureau of Reclamation, and they began studies all the way back in 23. And to consider this is the Pacific Highway, it's just getting started in 23, and they're already thinking about moving it. But they started construction. That's the height of the Depression back in 38. Started pouring concrete on the dam in 40. Had to relocate the highway. 30 new miles of railroad. And only almost about 20 miles of new highway. Railroads require obviously shorter gradients or shallower gradients. So this is a map of the relocation. This doesn't necessarily show with relation to the reservoir, but so here's the old highway, kind of wandering about here. Here's Pollock. So here's the old railroad going through along the Sacramento River, which is the main part of current Lake Shasta. And of course, the new highway, which partially encompasses what is now southbound Interstate 5. This is a much better example for the map for the railroad relocation. You can see the old railroad pretty much following the river, going through Kennett, all the way up to Pollock and beyond. And the new rail line diverging at Reading, going all the way up, finally tunneling through Bass Hill, and more or less following what is now Interstate 5 with some variations. And here's both realignments. This is the current state highway, US Highway 99. And then this dotted line is the existing, previous to the reservoir, existing highway. And this, now, with this in mind, from around this point here, all the way to Lakehead, has been traversable only on 2 points since it was flooded back in, beginning in 1944. 2021 may end up being one of those years. I'm well, a few people are hoping for droughts and, well, yeah. So basic stats on the new road. So 19.5 miles of new roadway. It opened January 8th of 1943. Pitt River Bridge, the biggest, 3,500 feet long, 8 spans, 8 truss spans. It was double deck. It was actually the tallest and largest double deck bridge of its kind at the time. It may still hold records. But 530 feet above the riverbed, 350 feet on the tallest pier. Antler Bridge, 1,300 feet. Deck to river, about 210. A little bit more data there. So I-5 was between 1965 and 1972. That was when it was realigned. So this gives you a little bit of perspective. This is looking basically towards the south, kind of. Here's Pitt River, still under construction. This is this bridge here. This bridge will never resurface. I can almost say that with certainty, because even at the reservoir's lowest in 77, it was still more than 100 feet to go. This is the nice arch bridge, goes over the railroad, goes over the river. This just won't surface, much as we want it to. So locations. This is a photo, aerial photo taken July of 1940. Obvious US Highway 99 going along through here. Here's the Pitt River Bridge, continuing on. And then here are the piers being developed for the modern Pitt River Bridge. So you can get a perspective as to the distance for those. Now, maximum exposure for the highway is at most maybe here. This section here. From here all the way over, be exposed. From here all the way down, not. So full pool, 1,067 feet. That's at that point, things start flooding. We'll go, at least going over the dam in a good way. The lowest water level, 77, at 829 feet with 578,000 acre feet of water. First, I don't have the numbers for a full pool, what the acre feet is, but I usually just go by the numbers, by the basic numbers of elevation, 829 feet. Right now, we're looking at 955 feet. When the photographs I'm going to show were taken, it was almost 900 feet. But in 2014, unfortunately, I missed that. It was another 30 feet down. So that exposed even more. Thing is that the 77 levels were, much, much lower, and it may well expose quite a bit. So I'm planning on coming up later this year. But if you really want to get at least a decent highway view, 910 feet is what you're looking at. So between now and then, 45 feet lower. This is the website through the California Department of, not sure what the CDC, well, it's the Department of Water Resources. You can get the levels there. So here's Pitt River. It's pretty scenic location there. This is a bridgehead. So you can see a little bit of roadway here. So here it is back in 42. You can see the highway going through. The bridge is complete. Highway's going by here, and then this hill here. This is 1942. This is in 2008. This pavement here is the same pavement here. So you can see something of what's left. This is in 2007. Yeah, 2007. So you can see the reservoir is definitely much higher. This bit of rock over here is actually partially limestones. It's where Shasta Caverns is located. You can definitely see the water line here. Looking out, the highway would have just kind of gone out this way, turned a bit to the right, gone around here, snaked its way down. Only a few hundred feet of water. Anybody want to dive? Looking towards Baird. And this is just a nice view of the double-decker Pitt River. Railroad goes off to the left, highway goes off to the right. Just interesting, found a stump here, complete with bark. This has been submerged for quite some time. So this is the Bailey and Baird area. So you can see the construction here for Highway 99 relocation. This is the relocation for the railroad. In fact, if you look, let's zoom in. See a bit, these are actually, this is a cover for a tunnel, and this is a bit of a cover for possibly a bridge. And this is the original Highway 99, albeit this will be realigned. Even post. This photograph was taken back in 1940. So this, well, the area that you want to focus on is this area here. This canyon here is this canyon here, complete with a bit of the highway. Here it is with water level a bit lower. It's the original paving. Going all the way down and around. Original paving. Now cut off by a boat ramp. This section here got massively redone because I want to point out this big loop no longer exists. For one, it goes through the railroad. Now the loop is kind of more like this. It just gets cut off. Remnants exist of the old alignment, and may explore those later this year. This is a bit of the bench that was once the highway alignment, obviously cut off by that. So this is a little bit further north. Now we're dealing with Salt Creek. And this is the part that to me is one of the most interesting. This is all underwater normally until right around here. This is the railroad. Tunnels, actually the tunnel here, pops out over here, big bridge here. And if you notice, here's a highway bridge. We're going to get to that. All of this will be is exposed now. All of the highways exposed, and this is an added bonus as part of the original alignment, which, as you'll see, was realigned in, I think, 1925 with a culvert here. There's actually a culvert here. We'll get to that. A little bit blurry, but here's a bridge that's exposed in the O'Brien area with teens railing, kind of that faux wooden look. Obviously damaged by, it could be anything, boats, plows, you name it. This usually is underwater, but it's now actually a bridge, as you can see. So here's the highway going further down the O'Brien Inlet. Any other roadways above or below are just simply access points because there is a marina that basically just, goes with the reservoir level. And they didn't quite clean it in this stage, very far. This was, I believe, 2008. You can see nice pavement. I don't know if this is original. I don't think this overlay is. but it is in really nice shape, following the original alignment. As is this, albeit covered in mud. Original alignment of highway. Oops. Looking back, let's see where this section here is. To get a bit of perspective of the highway going along here. See these markers up here. This is a temporary roadway, just simply accessing the marina. Bear paws, just a little bit of wildlife in the area. And the big railroad bridge that crosses over. This is not the one at Salt Creek. This is the O'Brien Inlet Bridge. But one thing to point out is this extra bit here, it was built to be eventually double track. Hasn't been done yet. Bit more old highway. And this definitely is old paving because that's white striping. That's striping that dates to, well, once the highway is being bypassed, they probably didn't do much with it. So that's probably no later than 1940. Pretty cool that it survived under all that water and all that time. And how many times is it washed? But the mud, a lot of mud. And a few stumps here and there. Imagine those trees being fully grown. Pretty much that, although no, here. This is looking further up the canyon. This is now going towards Salt Creek Summit. Remnants trees harvested down to a point before the reservoir filled up. You can see how much sediment's been dropped down onto the highway here. Pipe culvert buried. You can see a little bit of stonework around it too. So this is potentially original. Nice view of the alignment here. This part's kind of interesting to me. Is the highway gets a little lost through this section, but you know, being a geologist, you kind of look for layers and whatnot. Here's paving, here's the base, and here's sediment that was deposited after. So, well, there's the old highway, just buried. You got to know where to look. Popping up again here, you can see the highway. The grade is fairly obvious. That's just a nice view. It gets you an idea of. So that this is all sediment that it's been deposited since the reservoir was, well, since the dam impoundment began. This is the last layer of asphalt that was poured. This is probably part of the original asphalt. Here's a bit of the original subbase. And somewhere down here, you're actually dealing with the original roadway. Albeit up here, this is just all material used for fill. And a bit of deer scoping out the highway. And with trees and everything. And the Venerable Sea Monument. Some of them do exist. They're just, you know, buried. This particular one actually had a little bit of concrete holding it in, which I thought was interesting. This is now where we're starting to climb up and out of the reservoir on the O'Brien side. Old highway here. Now this is going to get interesting here. Just looking back, you can see again the old paving. Little bit of striping. And a 1925 culvert. You can see the culvert, you know, the top of the culvert over here. But there you go, 1925 culvert. Still remaining. And the highway starts to get this feel of, well, just an abandoned road rather than something that's been inundated. Here's the old highway again. Pavement is much better. Now you can see it kicking off over here. That's that old alignment. that I showed in the 1940 photograph. So this was realigned in 1925. Did not last long. Heading further up, get to the top of the, this is basically, you can see the marks for the high point of the reservoir. And you start getting into the forest. The section's been abandoned, no longer an active roadway, so it just gets lost. And yes, that's my finger. And it kind of just turns into nothing here. Sea monument exposed. So now we're going over the summit, the section between the summit, Salt Creek Summit, basically the railroad down into Salt Creek is partly private and partially public. Once you get down over the hill, accessible from the freeway as well, is the Salt Creek Bridge. This is exposed at this point. Not quite to this level, but I'd say the water line is somewhere in this vicinity here. But you can see at this point it's returned to basically pre-reservoir status. Highway going out, stream is following the stream. This is a little bit higher. See, the lake is, well, the bridge is, well, partially submerged. And here's me waving. Decided to walk out, check out the rest of the bridge. You can see here, this is similar to the other view where you're looking out, but in this case, the highway is still partially submerged. This is the Salt Creek Bridge for the railroad. Again, room for double track, as well as, of course, the highway. Nice view of the Salt Creek Bridge. I believe the bridge is also 1925. And it's interesting thing here is you see this section here. This is actually the abutments to the original bridge. So not only do you have to wait for the reservoir to get all the way down, but you also get to see the original bridge, which is, you know, that's teens. More obvious there. Here's the abutment for the original. So this marking here is actually some sort of like a fungus or not, or moss or something that gets like attached to the bridge. It's like this jelly looking stuff. It's kind of weird. And just a nice view looking down. I mean, this, with the reservoir down long enough, it starts to kind of return to its own. I mean, the stream kind of, you know, sedimentation starts, it's very, it just looks kind of normal. The issue is that it gets covered with sediment. So here's the old highway bridge, or here's the railroad bridge, here's the highway. And you can still see the thick amount of sediment that has been deposited here. A little bit of the old paving. And this is the highway leaving from Salt Creek, going down towards Pollock. Round in the bend here. You can see a buoy over here, some car tracks, but I mean, this is still quite traversable. Buried in sediment, but this is the original highway prior to 1940. Almost fully traversable. You'll see a sec problem here, but again, pavement visible. The culvert is gone. What I found to be interesting is that you can see aerial and subaerial and subaqueous deposition. These fancy geology terms. You know, you can see the sections that were deposited when this was still above the lake level, and then you can see sections that were deposited when it was below the lake level. And that actually is where the culvert eventually, you know, this is the culvert. Here's the highway. It is all eroded out. Here's the stream, here's the highway. trees, looking kind of nice. And I'm not sure if I focused in on that one, but here's somebody that thought their truck could go anywhere. It did not. It was abandoned there and was most amusing. So here's the highway again. You can see a bit of the paving. And one thing I wanted to point out is that this type of erosion here is fairly common because this sediment that's being deposited here is very fine and very easily erodible. So the stream just cuts right down through it, down to pretty much its original bed. Now you can see increasing amounts of sediment on here to the point where it's almost not recognizable in places as a roadway. It's just kind of a broad area. But it's there, buried. Thick amounts of this fine sediment, which is kind of tough to walk through sometimes. So here's a sea monument sticking out. And this part I found to be most entertaining. So you have this nice alignment sweeping around, and there's a cut, but here's another. So this is the original alignment, followed by the, I'm going to guess, about 1925 alignment, all inundated by a 1944 dam. You can see it's quite nice through here, a bit bright here, but the highway's just coming through. Old alignment sweeping around. And you can also see a little bit of the strata here. Looking through the cut, looking back through the cut into that nice sweeping curve. And I'm pretty sure that's a bear paw. Seem to found a lot of those in that this particular trip. And a bit further down, let's see, so you have coming back here. So around this bend, is this nice section of stone railing. There's very few sections still remaining, but here you have it. And this is right about where that old alignment was with the, well, the double old alignment sections. And as you can see at this point, the reservoir is now starting. So here's the old alignment, very, filled with sediment here. There's that stonework. A lot of workmanship went into this. I mean, complete with the lines here and then the cutting of the stone. There's a few sections that exist. There's near Sweetbriar, I believe, in Sacramento River Canyon. There's a nice section, but not much of this exists. And this is looking towards Pollock. You can see sediment on top here, but I mean, this is still in really nice shape. So, sea monument on top here. Some interesting strata. And the Pollock Bridge. Now, this bridge I'm hoping will be much more exposed this year. But the last time I was here, well, the time I was here a year prior to this, in 2007, the bridge was not really exposed. Now, thing to point out here is that, so this is the bridge crossing the Sacramento River. This would be a significant structure. It had pipe railing, which has since either been taken off or corroded away. But you can see the span looks a little different under here. This span here is for the railroad. The river crossed over here. And there you can see that this is the span that went over the railroad. This bridge, I believe, dates to about 25. This you can kind of see here. It's an interesting thing to point out. This is utility pole, probably telephone pole or electric line, but utility pole. What's left of it. So the vestiges of all the stuff that was existing along the highway that you can see. I haven't figured out what this is yet. Maybe it's some sort of a water tank, but it was right above the town of Pollock, so it could have been a water tank for the business, but still remains somewhat intact. So now we're looking at a little bit more detail of Pollock. So, like I said, this is this would be 2005, and the water is too high. The bridge is still underwater. And in this particular trip, kayaked. It's the highway leading out from the Pollock Bridge. Get a better perspective of it here. Nice sweeping curves. I mean, but by the time the 1925 highway went in, they actually did a pretty good job. So I thought this was an interesting photo from a geological perspective. The original strata. And then what confused me, I thought was kind of interesting, is then you have what looks like river alluvium, but the river's still well below here. What eventually I figured out is there was a lava flow that came down Sacramento River Canyon, possibly even from Shasta, that ended up creating what is known as inverted topography, where the river started going to the side, so the former stream channel became a hill. But this can see fairly warped material here. This is, well, it is, okay, so this is tertiary and Pleistocene. So this is maybe, 2 million years at most old, much younger actually, with this being Mississippian. This is a couple 100 million years old. These are sandstones and cherts. These are marine rock, actually. So this is looking across all that old highway, all that stone railing underwater. This is that water tank, what have you, much closer to the water level. And so this is above, and you can see an old culvert, but the fun part is I'm actually standing on a newer, I think a newer alignment, might be reversed. And this is the alignment, yeah. So this is the 1925 alignment, and the teens alignment is the one that you take. It's kind of, they reversed it there. Now that's interesting with the very warped strata. This is the Mississippian chert and sandstones. But below there, you can see a bit of old highway here. Speaking of old highway, this is the 1925 Charlie Creek Bridge, which the deck had to be raised because of the reservoir. There actually are pictures, I don't have them, but there are pictures of the lake going before they added this upper deck, where the water was right up to the bridge, right up to the deck of the bridge. So if it was high enough, it would flood. It's because the bridge has a slight drop there. 1925. Looks a lot better that way, I think, versus, that. A little bit grander, but definitely looks a little weird with that upper deck. But it's a fairly nice, fairly ornate as they go. arch span. Now, something to point out is that because the bridge is from 1925 and it's an arch bridge, if you notice, there's a term for it, I'm just not quite sure, but had this same span been built, let's just say 1950, all these little ornate pieces would be gone. It'd be a nice bridge, but it'd be much more plain. Now, these arches, this little flourish, I think is the term, these nice through arch look. Also nice stone abutment. So sometimes, you know, hiking the old highway. This is the Teens Bridge that preceded this one. Sweeping around, went way down across. So instead of just going straight across the canyon, it took a dive and went to the left, that way. And then around and then came back up over here. So went all the way down and then came back up. This one looking out towards the Sacramento River, which the railroad would run along here. And you can see the erosion of the lake deposited sediments, which creates these kind of almost collapses through here. This is the Doney Creek Bridge, it's almost a twin to the Charlie Creek. But in this case, the railroad is built right in front of it. Here's the current railroad deck. Here's the old railroad, complete with a culvert. And you can also see a bit of the pre-1925 highway going here. This is actually, it's right at the level where it's just bubbling. This is the top of what is an arch stone, a stone arch culvert. This photo I thought was kind of interesting from a geologist standpoint. So this is the pre-lake sediment, you know, this is the level it was before. Here's the tree that was growing before they, you know, when the lake was started. So here's the initial layer of sediment. And then this is when the lake was much deeper, much finer sediments being deposited. You have three time periods here. And then of course now it's exposed to the air. So from Doney Creek, you can see we're pretty close to the Antler Bridge. This picture is taken from the old highway. See trees growing up here. This bridge abutment's washed out. You can see it's built on a little bit of a curve. This bridge is probably about 1950. And the Antler Bridge, unfortunately no longer. It was replaced by a slightly higher and different alignment bridge. We'll see what happens if they raise Shasta, because they may have to replace all of them and the railroad. It's going to be a problem. Now, one thing I will point out is that, so earlier you saw me in a wetsuit, so I'm actually standing in the middle of the river at this point. It allowed me to take some very cool photos, I thought. So it's not just a highway, you also have the railroad. And well, there's a train going over. And here's the tunnel. Well, one of the tunnels partially exposed. Same tunnel, water level a lot lower. Look inside, you can see the timber supports. So this concrete facing was put in much later, after the tunnel was built. There's, you know, the timber supports rotting and whatever because, you know, being flooded. But why was I able to look into there? Up on top here, there's actually a little bit of a collapse of the tunnel. You can look in and see. And then there's this. Here you have the top of a truss bridge and a tunnel. With this actually is also a bit of a rock shed almost. see, zooming in here. Tunnel was originally built 1884 and lined in 1927. And you have this bridge here, which I believe was built in teens. Actually, 1901, I believe. Yeah, 1901. So decided to swim out. You can see the bridge. What's a regular steel crack truss? Pretty sure it's a crack. And there we go. Like I kind of ran through that. So, okay, let's see here. Okay, well, I was Lake Shasta. I'm going to take more photos when I go up later this year, probably October, November, where Bureau of Reclamation is predicting it may be the lowest since 1977. So we'll see. Either way, I'm hoping it's lower than it was than it was in 2008. So does anybody have any questions or what have you?
No, I've had the opportunity to explore some of those areas, but the lake level was never low enough for me to go to a lot of the places where your pictures were taken. So this was a lot of fun to watch, actually.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I went up 2 years in a row, and oh, 7, oh wow, it's really low. Wait a minute, it's even lower this year. We're going up again. And then 14, I wasn't able to make it.
What was the last year you were up there?
2008.
2008. Okay.
Yeah, 14 was the last year that it was really low. In fact, as I showed, 2014, the level was 30 feet lower than what you saw there. So another 30 feet, I could have walked across that bridge and into the subsequent tunnel. I hope to this year.
You just might be able to, the way things are going.
Well, that's what I'm hoping. But the thing, it's all about timing. I could delay the trip, but as soon as the winter storms hit, it just shoots right up. And if I lose 10 feet, I've lost, the whole point. So one other thing I also wanted to, so any additional questions about about Lake Shasta? No? Okay.
No, so.
Okay. Well, one other thing I did also want to announce, since this is of course for the Historic Highway 99 Association, is that we've started a new section to our website, which part of our mission is to help increase tourism and show people some of the sights that you can see along the highway. So we started what we call the Highway 99 Adventures, where if you go onto the website, you can see just some of the fun stuff to visit along the highway. Always looking for, we have museums, we have things like, well, like Shasta, like Shasta Caverns, there's lava tubes, there's a restaurant from 1888, all sorts of fun stuff. But if there's anything that you think we might have missed, or maybe we should go check out, by all means, let us know. We'd love to add it on.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. So.
And one
By
thing,
the way, I just sent you my membership stuff. So.
Well, cool. Well, welcome.
But that's I'm just kind of looking through some of that right now.
Now we're pretty excited about it. One of the things I thought was an interesting thing is so how do we map it? I wanted to put some sort of a map up there. And I thought, well, why not? I mean, we're putting the address, the website and all that, and most people use Google or something to plug in the address. They don't need a map from us per se, but a map would at least show perspective. So we're not better than a map from 1939 that shows US 99.
Sure.
And
There's another, as far as, using the, using the website as a bit of a tool. So there is I can't remember which group it is. I think it's not an AA roads group, but it's where they follow the Sunset Highway, from Seattle eastward. And they use,
oh, okay.
yeah, so they use Google Maps as a base, and then they actually will show, they'll color code different alignments, based on like a 1915 alignment, 1930 alignment. And, so, you can actually go out there using your Google Maps and actually find this stuff.
Well, we've looked into that. To be honest, I'm somewhat mixed about using Google Maps as a base, but I'm not opposed to it. It's just a matter of getting it done.
Well, that, and it's a little bit of a paradox, because it's like, okay, we want use the tools that were available at the time, and then there's, of course, today's technology, and I don't know, part of me says, well, it's kind of cool to use the tools of the era, to find things. And so if you're looking at 1939, and okay, that's where it would be in 1939. And part of the fun is dead reckoning.
Well, it's exploration. That's the fun part. The one caveat I do have with Google Maps, and again, it's a lot of people use it, and it is a good tool. I do find it to be a very good tool. My only caveat is my websites, at least so far, have been, I'm trying to be self-sufficient, I guess is the right term. Because I've run into problems where I develop, I put a couple of maps using Google, and then the program changed or the API changed or something. It's just like, well, then all that data was either lost, or no, I have to basically almost redo it.
Yeah, and I have
where it was.
And I have seen that happen, where you go and click on it and say, oh, that image is no longer available, or who knows what. So you're correct, as far as being dependent on another platform is not always as good as maybe it seems on the surface.
But it is something that I honestly I do think that is something that would be very helpful. Because where was Highway 99? I mean, I could give a text description, but a text description is not going to quite get you there. We have a text description and a basic map of the towns it went through. But even then, it's still like the Lincoln Highway Association, for example. I mean, they have, something like you were talking about, where the alignments are written down, and you can, here's the 1925 alignment, here's the 19 whatever.
Yeah. And in a case like that, Lincoln Highway, Sunset Highway is very similar in the fact that the alignments, the different alignments may be miles apart. It's not like, oh, we moved 100 yards this way. It might be, tens, if not 100 miles sometimes, like in this case of the Sunset Highway. It went through several different alignments, several different highway numbers. It was, and so, something like that is possible. The thing about 99 is it's never veered a whole lot away from its original alignment.
The biggest variation was probably the ridge route.
Yeah.
The only other major variation, and even then major, was between San Bernardino and Los Angeles. Until 1935, it shared with 66.
Yeah, with the example of the Lincoln Highway, I mean, up in Utah, it comes to mind, there was probably 100-mile distance between two parallel alignments. That's
Yeah.
the,
Where US 40 follows versus the big dip on 50, and even then the one through Tule. It goes
Yeah.
out like in the middle of the desert there,
Yeah.
oh,
which is now partially military land.
I just drove it a couple years ago, and the Lincoln Highway website was extremely helpful, obviously, in trying to figure out exactly where I was going. But what about, what do you guys think of utilizing Google Earth to a great extent?
Well, it's kind of the same thing. The main issue is honestly just creating the base map. And it can be done.
Yeah. Google Earth actually has a few more tools at your disposal than Google Maps. But
It's just a lot of tracing.
exactly.
It's only 900 miles. How long can it take? If anybody's wanting to help with that project, we could always use volunteers. But no, those are really good ideas. And we're trying to put out more data on where is the highway, and because it's not just like what the 99 Adventures thing is. My hope is that that's the seed. You get out there and to go to some point that we've told you about, and what you find before then is what's going to be.
Yeah, because I'm also involved in a local historical society here, and the one thing that we try to get our volunteers to do is, if there's a change coming, whether it's a new building going in, a new road going in, any change, is to get out there and document it with photographs and maybe some text, because or you're kind of in the same situation we often find ourselves in, is, well, where was it, what was there? And and as you're very much aware, there are certain sections of the old highway that are going to get torn up from some of the various projects going on. And so did I say railroad? But
Yeah.
But that's what happens, and not everybody is as really turned on about this stuff, like some of us are, and they don't care that they're about to get ready to pave over a piece of 1915 pavement, so you need to get out there and at least get things documented. Even if you can't change it, at least document it.
I can think of 2 instances for that. Well, 3 actually, 2 of which are right next to each other, where that was a thing. On the Ridge Route, you had, well, not on the Ridge Route proper, but that same era, section of 1919 concrete, pristine, in the middle of the modern roadway, right at the Kern Los Angeles County line up in Fraser Park. Paved over. It was in perfect shape. I mean, it was in some better shape than some sections of the Ridge Route. And over the hill on the south side in Gorman, you had a section of 3-lane concrete. The last section of intact 3-lane concrete on the Ridge Route alternate, June 8th, 1933. I just happen to remember that date. It's the date it was poured. And they pave it over. The road goes nowhere. There was no reason to pave it over. But every time I went out there, I tried my best to photograph it. I even had this one thing where I started from the beginning of the concrete and went every slab. Stopped, picture. Next slab, picture. I could make a movie of it. And I ran it, but so the other section that I'm thinking of in terms of document, that's so important. US 80 out near Flynn Springs, so just east of Lakeside, El Cajon area, starting to get up into the hills before you hit Alpine. It was in a section of alignment there where it was cut off by the freeway. So one roadway went somewhere else, and the other roadway just ended. But on the roadway that in question, it had a thin layer of asphalt on top of it, and you could see where the old concrete was. You can see exactly where that concrete curved off. And well, and that point went into the freeway, and then the new highway went off to the side. Every time I passed, there's like, I really need to get pictures of that. Finally went out there, snapped a whole bunch of photos. Was out there 2 weeks later, there was fresh asphalt. 2 weeks. So I got photos, but 2 weeks later, I missed it. So yeah, record that. You just got it. And the more people are out there recording, I mean, don't we all have these? So yeah, that's getting people out there to just see it for themselves. And everybody's going to have a different interest in it. One of the things that I included in the 99 Adventures was a lava tube. It's a very short lava tube, but it's one I didn't even know about until I was doing the research. It's just northeast of the town of Weed, off the US. Well, it's initially off US 97, and then it's off the US 97, US 99 cutoff, which I think is County 812. But that's just something unique that's accessible off the highway.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, I don't know, going to a low reservoir at, I can't think of the name of the reservoir, but the one just south of Ashland that you showed.
Yes.
You just got to know where to look.
Yeah.
And sometimes it helps to have somebody tell you, look here.
Yeah. And the interesting thing too is I noticed, I can't remember if, where I
Immigrant
saw
Lake.
it. Yeah, Immigrant Lake, but I can't remember where I saw it. But it was just about the time they were getting ready to open that new bridge on the Klamath River there at the north end of Shasta Canyon. And I had noticed when they had the construction photos out there that they were using the original, I think 1915, anyway, they're using that bridge. Yeah, they were using that bridge abutment as kind of a place to store their equipment as they were starting to blast through on the south side of the river. And I was hoping through all of this was going on that they that they didn't destroy that. And so Jill Livingston was there and she took a bunch of pictures. And as it turned out, they left it alone. So that bridge abutment, so they're going to be taking out the 1931 bridge. I have no idea if they're going to leave anything behind, but that 1915 bridge abutment is still there after all the construction.
That is cool.
Yeah.
There's a chance I might get up that far north. We'll see later this year. Taking a bit of time, so what's another 100 miles, right?
Sure, why not?
Because honestly, it's been way too long since I've been to that end of 99. I mean, Shasta River Canyon is a highlight.
Yeah, I have no
Especially
idea how
Pioneer
much.
Bridge.
I have no idea how much of the old river route, at the base of the canyon. I have no idea how much of that is still, how much you can get to without trying to U-turn in a narrow canyon. But
There's quite a bit. I've taken most of it.
Okay. Because I know some of it is accessible at the far north end, and then at the south end. And there used to be at the Pioneer Bridge, there used to be a little trail. I don't think you can drive on it, but that used to be an access point for construction.
I've taken that.
Have you? Okay.
Well, I'm trying to think what year it was though. Might have been 05.
Okay.
So at least by 05, it was still accessible.
Okay. So that would be fun to do. See how how much is that there.
You can go to the abutments.
Yeah. Well, that's about all you can do down there.
Well, yeah, because they throw out the bridges.
Right.
So other thing I wanted to mention is that up to this point so far, I've been giving presentations on various aspects of the highway. There's definitely a lot more. I mean, there's plenty to cover. But we do have 2 groups that will be doing presentations in the future, at least part of the thing. One of which will be for the town of Mentryville, which is an small oil boom town that was west of what is now Santa Clarita. Claim to fame to this place, among others, is you ever heard of a little company called Chevron?
Yeah.
Yeah, they kind of got their start there. They also had an oil well that was producing for more than 100 years, from the 1870s all the way to the 1970s. It's, you know, a lot of history there. This is one of the many things in the Santa Clarita area where I grew up. Also, with that in mind, the group that's involved with the St. Francis Dam will also be giving a presentation. I mean, that, well, it definitely crossed the highway, washed it out. But that's quite a bit of history right there. I mean, if nothing else, California history. In fact, well, I'll just grab it real quick. This is what I call my dam rock. This is a bit of the dam.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So there'll be at least that in the future.
Yeah, I used to use the St. Francis Dam as a, well, actually, on a totally unrelated use for it, it was a case for what we called mistake proofing. You know, if you start looking back at what causes certain events, and you go and find out that if you go backwards a few steps, you find out that the root cause is often embarrassing. And that's kind of what we used. I used the St. Francis Dam as one of those examples.
Well,
Yeah.
St. Francis Dam, Mulholland actually was more of a hero than a villain, in my opinion. Yeah, in the actions that he took at various times.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing, is that it's probably one of the few times, and it's somewhat cynical to say that, but it's still that here's a public official that a major that was indirectly causing behind a major disaster. It's still California's second largest disaster by loss of life, and he took full responsibility for it.
Yeah.
It
Oh, he
ruined
did.
him.
Yeah.
It's a shame. I mean, he was a great engineer.
Yeah.
But
He was an engineer, yes. I think he was at the dam, I think, the afternoon before it broke.
Yes, himself and Harvey Van Norman, as well as the dam keeper.
And there's a lot to see around that dam site. You can spend a whole day there easily.
Yes, it's there's geologically and everything. There's a lot.
That's fascinating.
So somebody's going to give a presentation that's a lot more involved on that. They're actually with the St. Francis Dam Memorial, it's association or something like that. I have to look it up, and well, they'll be introduced properly, but there's a group that's actually working on a more formal, like, museum for the location.
Oh, good. That'll be something to look forward to. That sounds good.
I'm looking forward to it too. Just been talking with them today about that. So yeah, that's
Is his name by chance, last name Puritz, Hal Puritz by chance?
No. Well, we got two people that have been contacting. Need to message them back. There's Alan Pollock, who I believe is the current president of the Santa Clarita Valley Historical Society, and a Diane Hellrigel. Rigel like the star, but hell in front of it. So Hellrigel? I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce, but her. They're with the St. Francis Dam Memorial thing.
Do you have a dates on that yet, Michael?
Not yet. We haven't figured out scheduling, but it will be, instead of our normal meeting on a Tuesday, it'll actually be on a Wednesday.
Okay, great.
Pretty much leaving it open for them as to figure out when it's going to be, because we don't have things figured out that far in the future. So, okay. Other than that, and one other minor thing is that I received a letter today from the California Franchise Tax Board, so we are now officially tax exempt for state and federal taxes. Yay. Other than that, that's pretty much it.
That's very good.
Oh, one more thing is he's not here, but we do also have a new board member. He's again Chris Myers. He actually lives here in San Diego. He's very interested in the old highways. Apparently, he originally emailed me my personal site, SoCal Region, like 3 or 4 years ago. He was finding out something. I think it was involving the Ridge Route. I forget what it was. But he's now involved with the association. He helped us get our contacts with the newspapers out in the Imperial Valley. So he helped us with the our first article in the paper after we posted those signs. So we have that. But other than that, that's it. That I guess pretty much concludes our meeting and presentation. Anybody have any additional questions or anything to add?
Just a thank you. Thank you very much for doing this.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.
You're all quite welcome. Well, that's it. Then I guess that concludes our meeting.
Well, Michael, I do have a question for you.
Yes.
You and I had talked about November the 6th for the Ridge Route tour.
Yes.
Is there a limit on the number of people or cars that could attend that? Do you have a policy on that?
Not specifically. The idea is simply to try to limit, because if nothing else, we don't want vehicles too heavy, large. But
Yeah.
No RVs certainly. If nothing else for a length standpoint, but.
And we would meet. The group would meet in the morning, probably on that Saturday. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, the morning is definitely best, and probably from the south end.
The south end. Okay, very good. I'll talk to you more. I'll send you an email on that, and we can talk about it more.
Yeah. Now it'll be fun.
Shit, sounds great. Actually, sounds great.
Yeah,
And it'll be slightly clearer that time too.
Yeah, I might make a trip south for that one.
But Michael's the guy to go on the Ridge Route with. Nobody knows it like he does.
I'm hoping that was going to be June, but it's just not going to happen. So September, October, there'll be a couple of weekends, maybe August. We'll see how that goes. Planning on starting our what we call cleanup with the Ridge Route Preservation Organization, not 99 Association. But there's a lot of work to be done up on the road, and we're going to be basically get picks and shovels, and we're going to be clearing the road. There's a large rock slide that does limit the width of vehicles right now, and that's pretty much our primary target. There's other sections where there is rebar sticking out. We need to deal with that. We're looking at filling in potholes. A lot of work to be done. But for that, check out ridgeroute.org. But yeah, so well, thank you all for coming to the meeting, and look forward to seeing you again.
All
Thanks,
right.
Michael. Take
Thanks
care.
again, Michael.
You're welcome. Thank you.